Alright, so I've opened up two files, clone stamp 1 and clone stamp 2. Just to show you how to use the clone stamp, which is a pretty useful tool to use. Right here's the clone stamp. Select it. It's essentially just making like a brush. You can select the type of brush, like a harsh brush or a soft brush. Select the size. I just selected a soft brush and click on the screen. For those of you who do not know the shortcut on how to change the size of your brush, it's a really useful shortcut to know about. It's essentially the brackets that are to the right of the P on your keyboard. So it's just the left hand bracket and the right hand bracket makes makes the brush size larger or smaller. If by any reason, if you have your brush size that's not a circle, you can't actually see it. If you have your caps lock turned on or off, if your caps lock is turned on, all you see is like a plus sign. If you turn it off, you'd actually see the circle of your brush. So the way the clone stamp tool works, click on the clone stamp tool. It's essentially copying and pasting pixels. So the way it works is first you have to hit Alt, the Alt key, and it gives you like a little target symbol. And you click somewhere, in our case, we're going to be deleting this yellow line. So I'm going to click, hold down the Alt and click somewhere close to it. And as I drag my mouse over the yellow line, what I can see is, I see a little plus sign where I originally made the my original click, and it's copying the pixels from the plus sign to the circle. So one thing I have to do is, I just noticed right there, right at that moment, what it did is it copied the pixels that were here. It copied the pixels that were here and it pasted them there. Right. Before that, I really didn't notice because of the asphalt is pretty smooth. In the big picture, I could go back and I clean this up, but once I finish this, you're not really going to notice that that's a major difference. The one thing you do have to do with the clone stamp tool is, one, you're constantly changing the size of the brush, and you're constantly selecting where you're copying and pasting the pixels from and to. So that's why it's also, and I just reselected them by holding Alt. So that's why it's also a good idea just to know the shortcuts on how to change the size of the brush. So by the time I get back here, the brush size it's way too big. But when I first started, this brush size was too small. So it's also just a really good idea of knowing the shortcut on how to change the brush size. And again, just reselecting where you're copying and pasting the pixels to. So there, essentially, we just got rid of that yellow line. So in the second example, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of that white line, but we're going to use a slightly different setting. So by default, one setting that it's already set to is using it, copying and pasting to the current layer. But one thing we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste from one layer to the next. So I'm going to make a new layer. Make sure I'm on the current layer. And change the size of my brush, just a little bit larger. I'm going to go up here and say current and below. Clone stamp. Alt. And just start copying and pasting. And essentially I'm just trying to get rid of this this line. Make the brush a little bit smaller. Reselect where I'm copying and pasting from. But essentially what I've done is I haven't edited the original photo like I did with the previous example. Now what I've done is I've copied and pasted into its own layer. So for any reason, if I accidentally want this part to come back, or if I didn't do it correctly, it's on its own separate layer, so I can always readjust it at any point. The other thing that also can be done using the clone stamp tool is also changing the opacity. And my brush size is a little bit larger. So say, for example, you don't want that line to be as bright. I can copy and paste these pixels, but because I dropped the opacity, it's not as harsh. So it's not completely, essentially copying and pasting all the pixels. So I could also do something like that within these settings.